So we're now on to the honeymoon of Jenna and Zoe. They went to Iceland, another cold place. Their honeymoon started on a good note, for we saw from Jenna, her expression said it all. They had a good night, so they had consummated their relationship. The next thing we saw was them having breakfast. Breakfast looked very colourful. Then we saw them having their own speciality meals. Jenna had her vegan meal and Zoe had her usual bacon and eggs. However, what started off as a nice day became a little controversial when it came to Jenna being a vegan and Zoe being a meat eater. And here's a clip of the conversation.
I feel that's going to be a big subject. Yeah. Well, what about if I was never willing to compromise and always want to eat meat? I mean, obviously it's up to you what you do.
As Zoe said, this will be a big subject, as we learn later. I'm starting to question whether the matchmakers did this on purpose. Put a meat eater with a vegan to see whether these guys can work around their differences. Oh dear. And the conversation continues.
Is that your bacon? Yeah. Look at it. It does look shit. It looks shit. There's no animals for oxygen. Don't tell me about meat. I don't want to know about animals dying because it'll upset me. No. It isn't nice, obviously.
You could see Jenna was slowly trying to make her feel guilty about eating meat. And poor Zoe's face. The poor girl. She was getting more and more upset.
Just don't ask. You don't want to know. Yeah, I don't really know about it. Living its bliss. Yeah, it is. It's not really, though, is it?
I really wasn't feeling Jenna's energy at that point. The sarcasm was too much. She's expecting too much from Zoe. They've only just met. And this is what you're coming with? Give the girl a chance, leave her alone, and stop being a bully. The conversation then continues.
I wouldn't be a vegan. I know for a fact that I would never be a vegan. Every vegan. No, alright, no, what I mean.
In this case, I have to agree with Jenna. Never say never.
I'm not a pushy person. Like, sure, at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you what to do. What's that?
Unless I'm reading this wrong, she says she's not a pushy person. Am I reading this wrong? Is Zoe reading this wrong?
There's no doubt in my mind she's going to try and convert me. Think down the line, it's going to be like, right, have some tofu, shut your face.
I couldn't agree with her more. And to add to that, is Zoe going to be able to meet her standards in the way she lives her life? Because I know Jenna has high standards. She runs a business to do with zero waste or something like that. So her life is very different to the way Zoe lives her life. These two may clash further down the line. It may be smelling of roses right now, trying to make it work. But I do question further down the line whether it can really and truly work. The next scene we saw with them was them having drinks and fruit and chocolate, something of that nature. And they seemed to be having fun. There was no meat on the table for them to argue about. So this time, the energy, the air, the connection was very much on point with these two. You saw Zoe express how the connection between the two of them was very natural, let's say. It's like she's known her for a long time. It doesn't feel uncomfortable. It feels very easy. That's what she was trying to say. And with Jenna hearing this, she was asking for more compliments. Any more? But Zoe turned around and said, no, that's all you're getting for now. Something like that, she said. So that was a nice sort of icebreaker for those two. Moving on. We then saw these guys go to a fine dining restaurant. Lovely surroundings. Jenna looking lovely in her black dress. And then the subject came round to, what would we like to eat?
What can I get? I'll get the black beans, please. Very much.
Did you see the way Jenna was staring at Zoe? She was quite intimidating. Zoe didn't know what to do. She's thinking, oh, what do I say? What do I say? I want the meat. Should I go with the vegan option or shall I take the meat? Do what you need to do. Order what you want. And then we saw the same old rigmarole continue.
Can I have the lamb, please?
Lamb. Would you like to have a medium or medium rare?
God forbid, but I have a medium rare.
Are we going to have to be going through this every time we eat? This is getting annoying. She's a big grown-ass woman. Let her make her own choices. And stop giving her the eye. And she says she's not a pushy person. I beg to differ. Moving on. We then saw these guys go on an excursion, a snow buggy ride. And after they had reached their destination, we saw them sitting down talking. And Jenna was asking Zoe how she thought of the relationship so far. Zoe says she's happy with where they're at. And then the conversation steered towards Zoe talking about the experiment being very intense. And normally she doesn't think so far ahead in her normal everyday. But in this case, she's thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen when we move in together, what's going to happen after the experiment. So her head's going 9 to the dozen at the moment. And with her saying that, Jenna's trying to calm her down to say, well, I'm just taking each day as it comes. So let's try and just do that. And then when you saw Jenna speaking to the camera, she turned around and said, with Zoe saying what she said just now, it's making me worry a little. But at the same time, she hasn't given me anything for me to question her morals. She says she's all in. So I'm just going to have to believe her and go with it. That's virtually what she said. The next scene we saw was them in the hot springs, chilling out. And the conversation again steered around how the relationship's going. And both of them had positive things to say. And Zoe continues to say that the matchmakers did a good job, but all it takes is one thing to throw a relationship off. And that's when it came down to the food situation. My girl being a vegan, Zoe being a meat eater. And Jenna turned around and said, yeah, I know my standards can be high and the way I live my life is very high. And to a lot of people, it can be a bit much. And that's where Zoe turned around and said, I respect your standards, but if you're expecting me to reach those standards, it's not going to happen. That's virtually what she said. Is that going to be a problem? She didn't quite say it that way, but that's what she meant. Is that going to be a problem?
I just think it's important to have that level of respect. And my concern is that you just try and make them change.
The subject is always around food. We can't get away from this subject here. It's going to be a problem. Even though Jenna turns around and said she respects her decision, it's going to be a problem.
Do you get that impression so far that I've said everything that makes you feel like I'm trying to push? Yeah.
Yes, she does get that impression. And so do we all. Even though you say you're not pressuring her, but you are. But you are. So as we saw, Zoe's got concerns. Is this going to be a regular topic? Because if it is, I'm out of here. That's virtually what she's saying.
No, Jenna doesn't want to change me. But
So in conclusion, we saw that both ladies had their concerns about this topic. And now we see Jenna's reaction.
After today, I'm not sure if we will be able to get past this whole fucking thing.
Well, that says it all. For her to swear, that says it all. She's not happy. Anyway, fast forward to our final scene. So after having some time to reflect on what happened earlier, we saw these two come together, again over a glass of wine. We saw them hash over the future and touched on what went on earlier. And this was Jenna's thought process when having that previous conversation.
When the conversation went the way it did, I saw it as are you trying to find problems to kind of let me know that you're not that interested?
But as Zoe said to her, you've got me all wrong. I'm looking more into the future because we need to think about the future. I'm not living day by day, but this is what you're doing, living day by day. And we need to be realistic. And continuing the conversation, this is what Zoe said.
You're constantly thinking about just the short term, and I think the reason that you're doing that is because in the long term, I don't know for you. I think that you may potentially already know that me and you would work on the outside.
She definitely has a point. Because if this was you meeting each other outside of the experiment here, would you even go on a second date? That's the question. Would you even go on a second date? But nevertheless, even though they have their differences, this was Zoe's reply.
There is no usual in this situation because I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not in this for the short term, and I'm trying to make a commitment to you.
So even though these guys have their differences, they're looking to make a commitment to each other. They're looking to make it work. And as Jenna says, let's focus on what we do have in common. So that's what they've agreed on. We're just going to wait and see how they turn out. I think this is going to be a long journey because I feel the food thing's going to come back up again. So this is where I'm going to leave it for now. If you like what you heard, please like, comment and subscribe. Till next time.